All right, we got another Friday, and we're going to talk about how do we use AI in work and not for creative endeavors. Before we jump into that, I want to remind everybody we have a live stream coming up November 19th at 5:30 p.m. or 8:30 Eastern. I'll put a link in the notes. You can sign up on YouTube to get notified when we go live. Otherwise, tune in probably a little bit before for a sneak peek of the pre-show.
Yeah, come join, ask questions. We can talk about anything. I think that's the fun piece.
Yeah.
Fielding questions about anything.
Yeah. We're going to debate pros and cons of AI. One of us will take a pro, one of us will take a con, and we're going to argue to the death. Whoever loses dies in real life. Join us.
Wow, what a teaser.
It's going to be a hell of a show.
I don't know what I signed up for.
It'll be like a Saw movie or something where they'll be like, one of you will leave the podcast if you get the key, master, which is behind your eye. Ah! Yeah, so I know last time we kind of teased the how do we use AI for work. I don't know. Do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. I think last time we were talking a little bit about, I particularly use coding quite a bit I typically use AI when I code because that's primarily what I do. There are lots of different ways that people use AI in coding nowadays. Either it's integrated in your account for whatever provider you're using, or it's something like in your IDE, or nowadays you have CLI agents or CLI-based agents. So personally, I like CLI-based agents. This is something like Claude Code. I know OpenAI has Codex, and I believe Google has their own, I don't know if they call it Gemini CLI. Yeah. So as a quote-unquote self-proclaimed power user, I enjoy the CLI because it gives you a lot more fine-grained control over what you can do with it. And it's not just coding. For me, I lean towards Claude Code just because I've worked with Claude in the early stages and they were better at coding. Yeah, it's better at coding back in the day. In my personal opinion, I still think it's better. To be fair, I haven't quite done a deep dive in something like OpenAI's Codex. I have used Gemini for coding. I do think that Gemini has an interesting flavor, but it doesn't quite hit the same mark as Claude Code does. And over the history of working with a coding agent, it's very interesting to see its progression. I think I've been slowly getting more and more impressed with the types of things that I get it to do. Typically, I try to pretend as if I'm talking to a junior software engineer, try to explain the task, explain things in more detail. But now I'm pushing the boundaries on testing what we call hive minds.
Yep.
So there's a framework called the Claude Flow. Not necessarily trying to plug or promote anything, but they have a very interesting tool that lets you spin up multiple coding agents, and each of these agents have a different role. So for those who are familiar with software engineering, typically you might have someone who just knows how to code. You might have someone who's more of an architect. You might have someone who is more like QA.
Yeah.
So with something like Claude Flow, you can build a quote unquote swarm of different types of agents. So there's already pre-built prompts and setups and frameworks for this agent will be the coder, this agent will be the architect, this agent will be the quality assurance. And you instruct the hive mind, and what your goal is and what you want to try and do. So I might say something like, hey, you are a code development hive mind, make sure to build unit tests, run your tests if you can, depending on the kind of framework that you're using. And you can even have a documentation agent, which is also useful for
super useful
understanding what the hive mind did and why it chose to do it.
And that's key, right? It's like documenting your code and what it does is like one thing, but actually having an agent that's like documenting the process of the agents is huge.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I do now is I spin up these hive minds. Generally, you can kind of include what types of roles you want in each of these hive minds or swarms, and you can build different swarms. So you might have one that I only want it to build features. So I don't care about documentation. I don't care about the architecture because I'm going to provide it. And you can have a smaller swarm and it'll spin up multiple instances to move things along faster. It's intelligent enough to know that if you have features that are touch the same code base, it will separate that out. So that's kind of what I do with my projects is now I spin up different minds, hive minds for particular types of work. And then that actually reduces a lot of the prompting that I need to do. So for the most part, last time we were talking about prompting tips with these hive mind agents, because a lot of the prompting is internal, you actually don't really need to be super specific. It helps sometimes depending on what you're doing, but for the most part, I'm just like, hey, build this feature out. Remember that this is integrated with this, or here's an example flow. The few shot stuff still works. So that's what I do now. But that is my primary mode of operation when it comes to using coding. Sometimes I do go very simple, just like the basic Claude Code agent, depending on what I need to do. Because if you use something like a hive mind, it eats through tokens like crazy. So if it's a simple task that I just want like someone to do or something to do that I know is very straightforward, just spin a regular Claude Code agent and just let it do its thing. But if it's something like a more complete feature, I would spin up a hive mind and start working with it to get it to do stuff. And I just let it go in the background, to be honest. I do tell it to pause and review for my own sake, but for the most part, I just let it go. And then I hit session limits all the time. That's like a normal day-to-day thing for me, is hitting session limits and then going and doing something else and then coming back to it. But that's kind of the high level of like how I code with hive mind swarms.
So,
but super fun.
You make fun of me all the time because I do it really differently.
Yeah. You do it in like the chat window.
I do.
Like the chat.
Not all the time, but a lot of it. Yeah. So I'd say generally speaking, I use it much more as almost like a team. It's like I'm a product person by training, and I don't know if I would claim that. I'm just a dictator by training. So I basically use a lot of the chat, and then I may talk a little bit about how I have it set up because I think that's what probably makes it work this way for me. But I'll give it kind of a high level description of what I'm kind of thinking or the problem or the outcome that I'm trying to get, depending upon what I'm trying to do. And then I have, so I use Gemini most of the time. Claude Code's really good for like actual coding and like if you're in the thralls of like having to write stuff out. Although Gemini coding is pretty fucking good, to be honest. Like last time I kind of A/B tested it, Claude was a little bit better, but I'm already in the Google ecosystem.
That's what it's come down to.
My company is sponsored by Google /backed. I don't know what you want to call it.
Free stuff.
So my company is backed by Google, I guess. Not an ad, but I frankly like their ecosystem better. I like their AI better. Like Anthropic is a very close second for me, depending on what I'm doing. So I have what they call a gem, or I have gems. And depending upon what I'm trying to do, I'll use that gem. But I have like a coding gem where I have a bunch of different instructions. Like I should probably put this in like the website or something. I don't really care if people, it's not proprietary.
Share the actual gem.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think I can share the gem like externally, but I can share like what I did in it. But effectively, I have it do kind of three core things. One is consider stuff, kind of like your hive mind swarm thing. Consider the different opportunities, the different outcomes, document and list that. And then a big thing is don't assume anything. And so the biggest problem I see with a lot of the AIs is it'll try to infer what you actually mean instead of like clarifying. And sometimes it's right. And a lot of times it's wrong. Or as you're doing more complicated things, it'll take like a total wrong turn. And then you just go down some rabbit hole and produce a bunch of shit that doesn't work. So I always have it make the assumption, but then ask me for clarification. Or if you're not sure, ask me. And then I have it give it explicit permission. and I'll use that in accordance with a repo of code.
Yeah.
And so it knows everything that's there, and then it knows what I'm asking, and then I have it grounded kind of through the gem for when I'm doing actual coding stuff. And then I'll usually pitch it a problem or pitch it sometimes a solution, like I need it to do X, and then it'll come up with a solution. If the solution's good or it looks good, I'll be like, yeah, make that happen. Other times I'll say, what about this? Or I'll challenge it, and then I kind of fight back and forth with it a little bit to either test my assumptions, or sometimes it'll be like, yeah, that's a really good idea, but it's, you don't need that for this level of scale. And I'll be like, actually, I have this level of scale. And it'll be like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Good for you. And then it'll like,
you're the most intelligent person.
Exactly. And it'll be like, you absolutely need mem caching for your database. And I'm like, yeah, I know, man. And so, so that the gemming has been really valuable, and then giving it the access to the code base, because then it'll just generate the pieces of what I need. And then so from like the coding approach, then I kind of punt it features, I guess. So I have like the bulk of whatever I'm working on written, and I'll say, I need it to do this, or I need to add this, or I'm adding this, this service or this system or whatever I'm doing. How do I integrate it? And frankly, it does pretty good. And one of the reasons I'm doing it this way is I hate writing code, but I'm also kind of testing this vibe coding thing. We talked about this, I think, here and there, but everyone tells me you can't vibe code. I think that's nonsense. Like it depending on what you're trying to do, it definitely hits limits. If you're doing obscure languages or you're trying to do some obscure stuff, but like for 99% of stuff, it'll do it pretty well. And then what I find is that to get past those limitations is you have to then use your brain and like be architect or be senior engineer.
Yes.
Yeah. And then it'll push through that, and then you can challenge it in specific ways. It still loops quite a bit. I complain to you all the time about the looping problems because it's hilarious. It's like, I am 100% confident this is the problem. It's still broken. I am 100%
now it works.
This is the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And eventually it usually
summarizes, now everything works. And nothing changed, man.
Exactly.
Nothing changed.
And usually it'll figure it out. And then what I'll implement the code, and then I'll commit the repo. And then in the next turn, I'll ask it something else or have it do something else, and then it knows. And it usually picks up on it. Sometimes I have to tell it, hey, I've committed it. Take a look at what we're doing now. And it's been working. That's been working remarkably well for me. I started using AI for coding 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
Something like that.
Always Gemini? You started with Gemini, or did you start with...
I was using Claude quite a bit initially.
Yeah, because Claude at the time was probably like the only one that really knew how to code. Everyone else was...
Yeah, that was, I think, Gemini Ultra 1 or something was like really, really good, but it was like basically impossible to use because it was like so limited. You'd get... I would get through like an hour session, and it would be like, you've hit your limit. Aha. And then when Gemini 1 came out, Pro or whatever it was, it was much faster, but it was too limited. And then 1.5 really changed stuff for the better.
Yeah.
But yeah, but
that wasn't even that long ago.
No, it wasn't. It's like 18 months ago, I built an app. It took me, the podcasting app. It's no longer around, but that took probably 6 or 9 months of kind of going back and forth with AI, building infrastructure. I had to build my own shit too. And then the next app I wrote with it would have been probably Seeks, which I started.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think that sounds about right.
I think I started that about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit more, but it took me maybe a month of Gemini to like get a prototype. Like it wasn't great, and like it had some problems, but like it fucking worked. And so I went from like 6 to 9 months to like a month, and now I'm working on a new product that I haven't released and announced publicly yet.
Yeah.
And I would say I got a prototype on that in a couple of weeks, and it's gotten so good now that I have taken that prototype and I'm able to make really big strides on features and stuff by using this method of, using some gems for stuff. I'll have another gem that I use for like architecture purposes. And so instead of talking code, it's like, this is my expected user base, or here's the,
Yep.
And so I'm kind of doing the same thing you're doing with the swarm mine, but I never hit limits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're also backed by Google. So
I also have like the Pro Plus Ultra Max times 1,000 plan or whatever. But I mean, I guess like tips for folks on that, if it really starts struggling, get a new chat going or getting a new session
clean
going.
Context. Yeah. Either think about what you're doing or clear the context.
Yeah.
Like, try and frame up everything that you can to give it whatever you feel like is
and just reset
specifically to the task.
Reset the context is huge. So it's like, where you can give it, if you're giving it the code, you can give it a much higher level of saying, almost like a PRD, right? Like, here's my target user group. This is the business case. We're trying to move these metrics. It needs to do this stuff. Here's what I have. How would I add this function? Or we need to add whatever. How would we go about doing that? And like we talked about, I think last time, but have it do a plan. And then if you're swarm hive mining, you can usually just have it implement. And then I'll take it over to my coding chat or whatever. And then say, okay, here's what I want to do. Here's the code. How do we go about doing it? And it'll be like, oh, that's really easy. And then you'll do it and it won't work. And then we troubleshoot through it. Or it'll be like, wow, that's a lot. It's like, okay, let's take, break it down into 10 steps. Let's start with step 1. And then it's that low iteration. And I think the best skill that I've gotten from like working with AI, generative AI, and I've been doing it, 5 years now?
Breaking it down.
It's the same software development problem that I've worked with so many teams on. Is like, how do we take this massive problem, break it down? The difference is that I don't have to try to motivate the team to scale it back. It's just like, no, we need this tiny little thing.
People.
Why? Right. Don't fucking ask me why. We have to get this out so we can demonstrate it. We can build on it more. Well, that's more tech debt, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, the business needs to like keep moving, right? The business can't sit around for 9 months while you create the perfect solution. And a lot of software engineers are good at not doing that, but there's a lot of teams that really, really struggle with being perfect or like being too much in the weeds on questions and stuff. Like, there's always questions. This isn't a perfect solution. It's going to have a bunch of problems, but it's better than what we have today. And that's the secret simple. For anything you want to do in life, make tiny little iterative progress with AI. It's really easy. And I think a lot of people who try to do AI, they're like, make me an app that's like Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. So
it took Facebook 5 years and thousands of engineers and millions of hours to create Facebook. It ain't going to do it for you in a day. But if you break it down and say, I want an app that I can have friends have profiles and we can share messages back and forth and I can upload pictures and shit. How do I break that down to get the messages out first and then add pictures and then make it, it's too hard to do in real time. So you say, well, it's okay if we have like a 15-second delay, right? And then how do you make that 15-second delay 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 1 second, instantaneous in quotes, right? So it's right-sizing the problem to even ask for help.
And by the way, AI can help you break that down too.
Yes.
Right? Again, we talked about thought partners, AI thought partners. If you don't know much about software engineering, you can say, hey, I want to do this app. What are some things I need to think about to break this problem down? And you'll get a list of things to consider. When you're trying
I have like a gem, which is basically like the scientific method. Right? It's like, push me on the problem. I'm going to give you a problem. Push me on the solution. Give me 3 options, and then I'll fight it on, I'll see the options and I'll pick one and I'll be like, let's go option 1, but here are the things that I'm thinking, or here's some more context. And I think the reasoning models are really good at this. Is like, as it's working, it'll give you an answer, but if you actually look at what it's considering and how it's doing it, that can really help you then say, oh, it didn't understand my question, or it didn't understand the information I gave it, or it made these assumptions that weren't correct, or, wow, that was really interesting, actually. Hey, let's explore, this little tangent more. And then I've done this quite a few times with my new product. And I don't come in with like a solution necessarily either.
Yeah.
Come in with a it's the same
in
as
life
like
in general too.
Yeah.
In life in general. Yeah.
It's the same as running a product team. Like if you come in with a solution, then you like, first principles, it's like, what is this actually solving for? And sometimes I'll lead it. I'll say, I want this architecture. I want to write this code. And then, tell me what to do. And then I say, I'm going to service, 5,000 users concurrently. Oh, well, you definitely want to do this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's wrong. Or sometimes I'm like, cool, but I'm going to use this tech stack because it's already, or whatever. Like I'm still in charge. But I do find it's a lot more like working with a team than not. And then I think the big thing is like, I have my coding chat. I have my kind of reasoning, planning chat, strategy chat. I'll use the deep research stuff a little bit too. So if I'm trying to come up with a feature and I want some data on like how this works and, what other companies are running this, or are there other open source projects that we could reference or that sort of stuff.
Right.
That's sometimes really helpful to say, we don't need to invent this thing. Here's a repo that does roughly what I want. How do I integrate this in an intelligent way into the mess that I already have?
Yeah, 100%. One thing I will mention here is the stuff that we're talking about is very technical, right? But I want to lay the seeds of this idea of context management, because even the things we're talking about in terms of gems, like these are all bounding the context.
Yeah.
Software engineering is a very natural way for that to happen because it's your code base. Your code base is the bounds of whatever the LLM is going to operate in, right? When you create gems or when you create projects in Claude, when you create personas or whatever they're called for ChatGPT, it's all creating this sort of limitation and where the LLM is primarily playing in, right? So I feel like if you can understand that managing what you're feeding the LLM is going to give you the best results, and learning how to manipulate that, it gives you the best success at getting it to do what you need to do. So in a non-engineering sense, we're looking at all these integrations now when you're working in knowledge work. For instance, you have your emails, you have Google Docs, you have a Confluence wiki or whatever, pulling all that information and just going to your context. So if you can keep all of it together or pare it down to just what you exactly need the LM to know, then you're probably going to get a much better result than if you just said, hey, pull this in from here, pull this in from there.
Even something like if you're break down the question or the task that you're doing way more than you think you should. And so like if you're trying to make, like, let's say you're trying to make a end of the quarter financial model, you have a spreadsheet with all the information, and you upload the spreadsheet, start asking it questions. It does pretty well. If you want to next level it, upload the spreadsheet and then make sure the spreadsheet has very clear, identifiable, can a third grader understand what this column means? And if not, then upload a key along with it saying column A, fin under profit, whatever is, this is how we calculated it. It'll have all that context and it'll give you like, I don't know, 100% better information.
Right.
And a good way to also check that is to upload it and then ask it, like, what do you think this is? What isn't clear about it?
It's a great tip.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it'll tell you.
You'd be surprised at how, sometimes it's actually really good at that too. Sometimes
it'll crush
say something.
it. And sometimes it'll like get it right. And then you ask it a couple, and then, asking it a couple like softball questions to kind of warm it up sometimes really helps too, because it starts to kind of narrow it down. And it's always good to, the other trick I think a lot of people don't really use is like, write me better instructions for an AI to get this information.
That's a trick as well. Is you could work with an AI to get it to figure out how to do something, and then at the end of it, just say, "Hey, condense this down into an instruction I would give to, say, a coding LLM or a project management LLM," and you get pretty decent results for that.
And then you feed it.
They tend to be verbose, but it works.
And you just feed it to a new chat, and then you have a much better, or you bake a gem or whatever the components are. Cool. Maybe we should talk more about context modeling and like general applications for AI stuff, because we both do a lot of coding things.
We do. But there's a general thought process. I think that it just so happens that coding is the natural way that it'll manifest. It's the easiest way, in my opinion.
I would say too, if you want to experiment with coding, or you want to build an app or something, go to get a Python app and then ask it, I want to do X, make it up. How do I get this working on my computer? Right. And it'll give you directions. And then as you're having it do stuff, I want to be able to save this so that when I refresh the page, it works. How would I do that? It'll generate the code, or tell it to generate the code for you. And then as it's doing stuff, tell it to explain it to you. I don't understand why this works the way it does. And then it'll parse it out in the functions. And so it's like, you don't have to be an engineering expert or a development expert to start to understand this stuff. Now, don't think that you can just go to a team of developers then and tell them what to do, or, it took me 20 minutes to buld this in AI, and therefore we should do it.
That's
It's always the thing that I see, it's like, there's a lot, it's a lot harder to take something and scale it than it is to just originate it. But if you're a product person specifically, if you can get kind of a mock-up of something visually or even in code that does kind of the thing you want, you can give it to your team and say, I made this little mock-up thing. This is the general idea, or this is exactly what I want, or this is exactly the thing that we need to accomplish. How do we replicate this in our app? Or how do we add a similar functionality? And it's way easier sometimes to implement that kind of thing than to sit there and write a PRD or do a bunch of user, FAQ stuff. And you can just literally show them like, hey, this is the mock-up, or this is the logic that I think we need to do, or I fed it this data set and it gave me this algorithm, or whatever, whatever you're talking. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Until next time.
Yeah. Super practical tips for you to take on your AI learning journey.
All right. Take care.
All right. You as well.
You can find us at 38.com. It's like the word create, but with a 3 instead of the C. As always, we encourage you to listen, watch, do. We'll see you next time. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/38 or at ko-fi.com/38. Thanks for listening.